Okay, we're recording. And we're going to start off by taking these door dynamic scripts, and we'll make sure that we have them in our Unity scene that we're building here. So this is my Unity scene that I'm building that I showed last time. I've added a few more painting on the landscape. I haven't done much with bringing in a lot of objects yet from Megascans, but that's something that I'm going to continue to do. And we did talk about the pickup stuff last week and making that script work. It wasn't complete. I kind of ran out of time last time, so we're going to continue working on that with my pickup object here. So let's go ahead and start working on that. Incidentally, so you can bring in addition to bringing in models from Megascans from Bridge, as I showed last time, you can also bring in models from Unreal, from your Unreal scene. I'm gonna do that just to show you how to do that. So let's say that I go to my Epic Games launcher and launch my Unreal Engine scene. Which is this one here. Let's go ahead and open that up real quick. And I'm going to make a note of, this is Unity class project terrain, Unity terrain 1 that I'm working in right now. I'm going to go ahead and do a file, save as, and I'll save into my scenes folder because that's where we're saving these. I'm going to start working on dynamics. So, we'll just call it Unity Core Dynamics 1, and I'll save that. So that's the scene that I'm in now. And when Unreal Engine opens, what I want is I want to export out this object right here that I created. So I made this from the cube stuff. We could just call it Outpost or something. Shed. I'll call it Outpost. Model. So I've got this Outpost model here, and if I look, the static mesh for that is right here. So if I look in my details, I've got it selected. I can look down in my details and find the static mesh object. I can go to where that is. And that's it right there. Cube grid tool output. And I can go and right click that object and go to Asset Actions and go to Export. Okay, so I can go to Asset Actions, Export. And I can export that out. And I want to export it out as an FBX file. So it's selected down here as FBX. If you don't have that, you should, if it's on something else, I would switch it to FBX for exporting to Unity. And then I want to go tell where to put it. And I would just, in our Unity file here, I have a My Models folder, and that's where I would place this. So if you don't have a My Models folder, go to your Assets folder, right-click, create a new folder, and call it My Models or something like that. And that's the folder that we'll put it in. So I need to find my Unity class project, which we looked for last time, inside of this export box. So it's going to be inside of my desktop NCSU class folder, Unity demos, or actually Unity project class, and Unity class project, assets. So I found my project file for Unity, going into the assets folder, and that's where all my assets are and where my custom folders are that I've been creating inside of Unity, like my materials and my models. So if I go into my models, I can then save this FBX file there. And I'll just call it, like I said before, Outpost for this, and save it. So I might get this exporter. I would say that probably use the latest version, whatever's in here. 2020 seems to be the latest one for the FBX exporter. And I don't think you need to do these first two. For mesh, I would go ahead and, I don't know that you really need level of detail, but I don't think it's going to hurt to put it on. Collision, yeah, okay, we'll put the colliders on there, but I don't know that that'll actually come into Unity either. And it's not a skeletal mesh, and it doesn't have an animation, so I don't really think any of that is applicable. So we're just going to export it. And then you might want to look at this, your object that you're sending out, and take a look and see what is the material that is being used on it. And I'm using the ML grooved chipped metal material from Megascans on that object. And all the UVs, which is the way the texture map lays on the surface, is what is created here inside of Unreal. And so those are all going to be there in the FBX that gets imported. So if I put on the same texture, if the texture map doesn't come in with the as embedded in the FBX, then I will just go and manually put it in from importing the material from the texture map from Megascans. So the MI Groove chipped texture. And if, so if I go now and I'll just minimize it for now until we see that it's working. If I go over here and go to my models, what I'm going to see is now I have the Outpost model in there. And, you know, when you bring in something to Unity, the way you do imports is different than Unreal. Unreal has a pop-up window that you set the import settings and things like that. So Unity, you look at it in the inspector by selecting the object that you imported that's over here in your project folders. So you're always going to start with model and look at the scale factor and possibly the generate colliders. I would say you probably do want, for this, I definitely want to generate colliders, so I'll turn that on. And probably don't need to change anything else from the defaults. I'll go ahead and apply that. And then I always go over to the materials. Now I don't need rig and animation because this is a model. It doesn't have any animation. It's not a character. It doesn't have a rig. So I'm going to skip all that, go over to the materials, and I always use external materials and change recursive up to local materials folder. And that just makes sure that if there are any materials on this object, they get put into this materials folder. And I can see that there is one here, but it doesn't have any of the texture maps plugged in. So they were not embedded in it. So I just need to go and get that material. And I already downloaded it from Megascan. So I don't have it in this particular project file, but I do have it on my machine exported. So it should be pretty easy for me to go grab that and plug those in. But before I do that, let's go and just take a look at this and drag it into my scene and see what it looks like. See if it's the right scale and everything. So what I see is that it looks pretty good. I'm going to move my wall out of the way here. Put this kind of where the wall was. And I want to rotate it about in Y. Should be Y. 180. Actually, it came up in Z. Probably because I'm importing from Unreal, and it uses Z up. So this local model, even though my manipulator actually has the Y pointing up, it's generating numbers in my Z channel. But I'll just type in 180 and that should flip it around. And then I'm going to go back to moving it. And I just want to put it kind of right here. And we'll just zoom in a little bit there and take a look at it. So it looks pretty good. Maybe I'll turn it a little bit like that. And when you're using the manipulator in Unity, there is a flip between global and local that you can do on the top of the window here. I'm in global, And if I want to be on local, I click it and choose local. And you see now my manipulator is set according to the rotation of the model. It's a good thing to know about because sometimes you're going to want one or the other. So now it's sitting there on my ground plane. It looks okay. I got a flat area to put it in. I'll check and see if any grass is coming through the floor once I get the texture map on there. But let's bring in the texture map. So I'll go into my materials and here is my Quixel surfaces that I have in here. I don't have one for this particular model. So actually, I think because it is a model, I'll put it in this materials folder over here for my model materials, since that's just makes more sense. And I already have this material that's actually on it already. So I just need the textures. I'm going to go grab those from my machine. And those are going to be, again, in my class folder. In my Quixel Bridge textures, Megascan models. Actually, sorry, in my surfaces. So here's the grooved chipped metal one from Megascans that it's referring to that I had inside of Unreal. And I'll go ahead and pull the color map over. And I'll pull the normal map over. And so these names are really generic, as I mentioned, and so it's kind of like important once you start getting more and more of these in here, especially if you're putting them in the same folders. That so this is metal sheet. So I'm gonna just make sure that this one's OCICP or SMDO. So if I look at this one, see, they look the same. You can't really tell. I can tell with the color textures, but I can't tell with the normal textures that this is the one that I want. So I'm going to just type in metal sheet, something to just indicate to me that this is the correct one. And then I also have to, whenever you bring in a normal map, you got to set it in its import settings to normal map in the inspector. And then, as I mentioned, I sometimes pull the an ISO level up a little bit and apply it. Make sure that I have a texture map size that is what I downloaded, and these were all downloaded at 2K, so that actually is 2048 is 2K, 4096 is 4K. So that's accurate. And then I don't really need to change anything else on this, but this one I might want to also, just so they're consistent, and if I'm searching for them anywhere in the outliner or something, I'll put metal sheet on the name as well of the color map, the albedo, so that that's going to be easy to find. And then I'll just plug them in to the albedo of my material here and normal map. And you notice it looks pretty dark. Probably want to mess with my metal and smoothness to try and see if I can make that a little better. I might also want to switch from a standard texture to a standard specular. so that I could see if I can control the specular at all here. That doesn't look good. And basically, I'll just click here where the color of the specular is, and I'll see if it looks better if I pull it up. Actually, where's my albedo? Okay, there is no transparency on this, but let's. So that's not what I want. Getting I'm getting some tiling here, which looks weird to me. And so I'm not sure, I don't remember what the tiling was. So let me go and let's go and see if we can put this at like 15 by 15. About 10 by 10. Huh. Okay. That's better. Let's try 0.2 by 0.2. Okay, so that's looking better. So it's looking close to normal now. It's still a little dark, but it could be that my lights just are, it's just in shadow. So I'm gonna go ahead and walk to the other side of it and see what that looks like. Where the lights, because I can see that the shadow is actually, this wall is in shadow. So let me just walk around it and take a look at it from some of the other sides. So that looks normal, actually, looks fine. And I got the tiling correct after a couple of tries there. So you can see that it brought it in pretty much fine. And actually I can walk into it fine. Let me make sure I can't walk through the wall. So the collision that was created on this object as part of the import actually is working fine. So if I look at this object in my scene, if I select it, I can see that it created a mesh collider in its components when I turned on collisions in the import settings, and it is working correctly. I am able to walk through the door, but not walk through the walls. And I did have to, unlike the terrain textures, the model texture really needed to be set down very low to like 0.2 in order to look like the same tiling that I had inside of Unreal Engine. And I did put it back just to a standard shader on this, as opposed to the one with the specular that I was trying to use to lighten it up, because it doesn't need to be lightened up. My lighting's just wrong. My lighting just needs to be worked on. Okay, so I used a 0.2 tiling on that. I didn't use any offset. Offset is just going to slide the texture around. This is an opaque texture, even though there's windows and stuff, those aren't made from transparency. So you do want an opaque texture for something like this. Okay, so and I did mess with the metallic and smoothness because it is a metal shed. So I think that's appropriate to do. So that shows you how you can bring in models from Unreal Engine. And I'll just go close Unreal Engine now because we don't need it anymore. I'll go ahead and save what we did there, which could be a time saver if you work on some nice models over there for some kind of structures and you want to bring them over here. Potentially you could do that. Now, I want to put a door in here so that I can control a door opening, and I want to be able to pick up objects to open that door and all of those things. So what I'm going to do, because there are no good doors over here, and you probably should know this anyway, I'm going to make a door inside of Maya, Autodesk Maya. As you can see that I have here, I have a door that I made inside of Maya, and I've got some animation on it to make it open and close. Okay. And so to create that, I just used a cube. So let's try to do that again. It is kind of important in how you set your door up. Now, you could do this inside of Blender, or you could do this inside of a program like Maya. Maya should be on all of these machines. And if you want to open up Maya and try to make a simple door, you can do that now so that you can have one with an animation on it. We could put a window in it like I did here, or leave it windowless. You are going to need some kind of texture map, and I am using a texture map here that I downloaded from the internet. So actually, no, I'm sorry. I got this texture map from a Megascans door. So the Megascans doors don't really have, a lot of them are not actual models that you would want to use as a door. This door actually has, both sides to it and everything. And so I created a texture map inside of Photoshop from the texture map of Megascans model. So what I did here to create this was I went to Bridge, and I looked up doors. And this is the texture map that I made for it inside of Photoshop. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how I did that. So if I go to 3D assets here and I do a search on door, and I look down through some of these, I was looking for a door that would make sense with my outpost, my shed, basically. So I wanted like a metal door, like one of these ones here. And so I chose one of these. I think it's this one here, this modular building door. And I downloaded it and exported it, just as I've been doing, setting my export settings to be a custom disk export to a particular folder and to send out the textures as a ping file in case there's transparency on it, but there isn't. So I could have used a JPEG, but it doesn't matter. And so I exported that out to my Megascans folder here. So my Megascans models folder, and it has my modular building door in there. And if I double click it, I see the albedo texture here. And I can right click it and open with Adobe Photoshop. Okay, so I'm using Photoshop 2022. Probably should update to the new version that has all the new AI stuff in it, but I haven't done that yet. So the texture map that ends up opening here is this, and I wanted to just use this part right here. Okay, that one little piece of the door. So that's what I'm going to use, but I don't have what I need. I don't actually have a door yet to put it on. So I have to create a door in here. And I'll go ahead and do that now. Let's just do a new scene inside of Maya. So if you launch Maya, actually, let's just close this. And we'll launch a new scene. I'll just save it. Close it. Okay, so if you launch Maya, and ultimately I will be sending this over to Unity as an FBX. And so if you are a Blender expert and you want to create a custom model in Blender and export it, I suggest you do it as FBX to send to Unity. But I've actually used Blender before. It's a good program. I've taught it. But I haven't used it in a while now because mostly I've been teaching Maya instead. And I teach Maya in my other courses too. So if you come to my other courses, and there's 3D in it, you're gonna use Maya. So I don't really think you should be like tied to any particular 3D program. It is what you know. So if you only know Blender, you probably will be using that. But you should learn other programs too a little bit, because if you're realistically going out into the job world, there's a lot of places that use Maya. So you probably want to know a little bit about it. And so if you open Maya for the first time, actually, it's not going to look like this. It's going to look like more like this. And you're going to have an outliner on the left, like we've had in so many of our different programs that we're using. You're gonna have a details thing on the right, which is gonna be called an attribute editor or a channel box, depending on which tab you're in over here. And then you're going to, yeah. Oh, okay. So, all right, so how about this? So in order to use Maya like the other programs that we're using, you're gonna have to sign up for an Autodesk account. You can sign up for a free Autodesk account. A lot of people students that come into my class say, oh, well, Blender's free and Maya's not. That's not true. Maya's free. So you can sign up for a free Maya account. You can also do a student account. And so let me just, let's just go to the website and just verify. I know you can get a free student account. I'm pretty sure there's also just a free version that you can sign up for, but let me just make sure that I'm saying the right thing here. Okay, so as students, you are going to be able to get a free account. Okay, here it is. Download Maya for students. But you don't need to download. You just want to sign up for an account because we already have it here, but you have to sign into it just like we did with Unity. So I'm not going to do this because I've got, obviously I'm not a student and I have an educator account. There's also a free trial here that you could sign up for. And then you could get your student account working. So let's go to sign in. Can you try to create an account?
If mine works now.
Okay.
I already have others. But it wasn't recognized. It's only for like 5 minutes now.
Okay. So you're creating an account?
Well, I already created an account.
Give them your school email address when you sign up for it. Make sure you leave your school email address. And that might be all you need for them to verify that you're a student. Okay, so who can get into Maya? Okay. And are the rest of you trying to get into Maya? Okay. I just want to make sure that it's actually working on these machines, if you're using these machines. While you're doing that, I'm going to also get the scripts that I want to start talking about today. So I'm going to download them. Going to go to my downloads folder, unzip them. And we'll place those inside of my Unity project. So now I have 9 scripts in my scripts folder, and we'll start looking at those. But I do kind of need all my elements, so I need a door with some animation on it, so I'm going to do it in Maya. Hi. So who's got Maya working? Okay, a few more people. All right, so I'm gonna if you have Maya working, great. We'll go through it together. If you don't, then you'll have the video to look at later on. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started talking about Maya anyway. So inside of Maya, you're going to see your 3D view in the middle here. You can hit the space bar to actually go to sort of 4 screens with orthographic views and a perspective view. I'm just going to click here again on the perspective view with my space bar. So you can maximize any of the views by putting your cursor in the window and hitting the space bar once, and go back to your 4 views by hitting the space bar again. So I'm going to actually work in the 3D view here, and on the left I have an outliner which shows me my hidden cameras. That's actually this view is the perspective view, which is a hidden camera, and some default lighting and stuff over there. But I don't have anything in the scene. So across the top, I've got a lot of menu stuff, and I've got across the bottom my timeline for animation and some other things for scripting. So when you're working with this interface, it's got Y up and Z forward in the same way that Unity does. Different than Unreal Engine, which has Z up. You just have to keep that in mind sometimes when you're bringing models from one program to another. So I want to create a door, fairly simple door, and do some animation on it and export it as an FBX. And I want to texture map it as well. So I'm going to do that in here. And I'm currently in what's called the modeling menu across the top here, and the generic workspace in the upper right, or sorry, general, not generic. And I'm going to be switching some of these things as I go along to modeling and to UV editing and to animation to create this door. And so to create the door, I'm just going to keep it simple. I want to go to the create menu on the top. Or actually, sorry, before I start, let me go ahead and set my project. So the first thing you do when you come into Maya is you set a project. I'm going to go to File, and there's two things down here under File, under Project. It's Project Window and Set Project. Project window is where you create a new project. So if I choose that, I get this window that has a pathway in it that tells me what my current project is. So I'm gonna hit the new button to create a new one, and I want to I want to look where that location is going to be. So I want it to be where I am doing my project work. And so go ahead and start off by clicking the new button, and then go down to the bottom where the folder becomes available, and click there and find your project, or not your, don't find your Unity project because you don't want to make a Maya file inside of your Unity project. Find your class folder on your system, on your desktop, or you could do it on your desktop or in your class folder. So I'll go into my 311 class folder, and I'll make my Maya project here. And maybe I want to right click and create a new folder and say, Maya projects or something. So I'm going to make my Maya project inside of this Maya projects folder. And so I'm going to select that. And that's going to be my pathway. And I'll give it a project name. Let's call it game assets. I'm not putting any spaces in my name, game assets. It's going to create all these folders, a scenes folder, a templates folder, all of these things that are down below that. Just hit accept. And you're not actually in it yet. Maya is a little bit weird and unintuitive in that you have to create the project, and then you have to set the project, which is right after project window here under file. And you basically just have to choose that thing you just made and set it. And now if I go to File, Save Scene As, it will open up that it'll place my, what I'm saving here, which is a Maya ASCII or Maya binary. I'm actually using Maya ASCII because of the MetaHuman stuff that we do always is ASCII files, but normally it would be Maya binary. And you'd give it a name like, I'm making a door asset. And I'm going to save it in the scenes folder of this project that I just made, game assets project. And it's going to save that in there. So like the game engines we're using, Maya's not just one project file. I mean, it kind of is, but it's in the scene file is inside of this project folder that has all these other folders. And as you build up a Maya project, you'll have other things in there too. It's not as complicated as a game engine. So now I can start saving my stuff, and I want to create a polygon primitive cube. And I'm going to open up the options for that. Whenever you use Maya, these are option boxes on the right, whenever you choose something. And so I'm in the create polygon primitives cube, and it's opening up some of the options. This is the default, so probably yours would be the same. 111 is the size of the cube, so it's just a cube. Nothing surprising there, but it's going to create the UVs and normalize everything. I'll go ahead and create that. So that creates this cube, which is a 1 by 1 by 1 cube that I can see some of the size and other things, the position over here in my channel box on the right. You can also go into and see things in the attribute editor for this object. And there are going to be some stuff that you might want to look at in here under, for instance, polycube is actually my creation attributes. So I could use this to size my door, or I could just hit my WER keys to size like we always do. I'm going to go ahead and just use those. I'm going to scale this out. I'm going to go back to my channel box so I can see the numbers that are going into that. So let's just scale this to maybe a door that's like, let's say 4 wide. Something like, yeah, okay, 7 tall, and it's a little bit too wide there, so I'm gonna, in the scale Z, I'm gonna put 0.5. So a door shape. And I want to I maybe want to create a window or something in this door. So that's where I might go over to these attributes here and change the subdivisions. So the subdivisions, there are none on this door. If I pull this up, you can see that under subdivision width, I can create some subdivisions by just pulling these up. So like I can do an 8 by something like that. And that's going to add some subdivisions on the front and back of this door, which would allow me to go in and carve a window if I wanted to. Okay, something like that. Now, if I want to actually shape this door a little bit, I can right-click the object and I can go into select faces. So this is a context sensitive menu that will allow you to go from object mode to component mode. And I actually, if I want to shape the door at all, I have to switch to like faces. And if I'm going to model the door, I might actually want to switch my workspace in the upper right from general to modeling standard, which will give me a bunch of modeling tools that I can use here. And that could be useful. It's got some things like symmetry and extrude and things like that that could be useful for me. So if I want to select, say, the faces on the front of this door where I want to carve out a window, I can use the paint selection tool on the left here. It looks like a paintbrush. And I can go and drag over these 4 squares. Yeah,
What's the grid?
I got the grid by, if I switch back to object mode, I'm right clicking. If I switch back to object mode, sorry, let me get out of this paint tool. If I switch back to object mode, which is green, and I go back, or actually it's in the attribute editor, which is in the modeling. If I'm in general, these are tabs over here. And this attribute editor has a Polycube 1 tab across the top. So these are all different parts of this cube. And Polycube 1, it's the third one in. There's one for the transforms, there's one for like some tessellation attributes, and there's one for the history. And subdivisions for this cube are under the history. It's under this node, Polycube 1. So in the attribute, are you in the attribute editor? So you have a channel box and an attribute editor. Do you have an attribute editor? You might not. If you don't, you can go under window at the top here and open it. But if you have an attribute editor and you have a cube, there's going to be this node there. Somewhere across the top here, there will be this node. It may be not in exactly the same place. Did you find it? Yeah. And there's subdivisions down here. And I subdivided it by pulling it to 4 and 6 in the width and height. Okay. So that just lets me sort of gives me something to work with as far as the structure of this cube goes. And if I switch back to the modeling standard, I could have gotten to the attribute here too. I have an attribute editor there as well. So going back, I'm going to go to the paint selection tool. Again, you can right click and choose face if it doesn't automatically switch you like it just did me to the blue. So if you're in blue, you're in component mode and you can select faces. I want to select face. And so I painted over the front of those, and I'm going to go to the right where it says extrude in my modeling toolkit. And I'm going to click on it. And it's going to make a duplicate of those faces, or sort of like separate them so that I can grab this manipulator and push it in. I can also hit the R key to switch to scaling and scale it down a little bit. And hit W to switch to move. I can orbit to the side here, for instance, to see where I am, and I can pull it in a little bit. So I've just kind of carved out a little window. Do you see that? Let's do it on the back side. So I'm going to do it on the back side too. I've moved it a little bit in, but not all the way through. Because I'm gonna leave a little bit in the middle. I'm not gonna delete the faces because I actually want to make those glass. So I want to make those a glass material. So if I go to the back side, I do it again. Let's switch to the paintbrush tool again. I'm going to select these faces. I'm going to hit extrude. I'm going to hit the R key on my keyboard to scale it down a little bit. And then I'm going to hit the W key to move it in this way a little bit. So I have, I should have like two. Oh, and actually, you know what? I think I forgot to unselect the front faces when I did that. So I'm just gonna Control Z undo. So I really should have unselected those. You can click in any empty area to unselect the faces. And here I'll paint them again. See, now the other side's not selected. Extrude it, pull it back a little bit. Switch to R, scale it. We all know the WER key because that's what we're using in all the other programs that we're using. And it's the same in Maya. So that's really nice that it's kind of consistent. If I switch from my shading view here to wireframe, I can see kind of where I am at on this. So I want to leave a little space in between the front and the back here. I'm pulling it in, but I'm not pulling it in all the way to the other side. And I'm just creating this. It's just going to look a little better because it's three-dimensional, and I can switch my shading back to smooth shade all on the top of the window. And so I can see that I have this little window thing that I've created here. So it doesn't matter if you have a window or not. I kind of wanted a window in mind, but you could just have a flat door. What's important here is that I'm going to have a door with a hinge. And so this object, I'm going to go to the left where I see P cube 1. It gives you a generic name like that. I'm going to double click it to rename it to my door. Okay, so now I'm calling it door. And I want to texture map this door with the UVs. And to do the UVs on this door, I need to send them out to Photoshop. And I need to look at them in here first. So I need to make sure they're good, like they're going to be something that I can work with in Photoshop. So once I have a door, and it doesn't matter if you have a window or not, but I have a window. And maybe another thing I could do here is over in my my modeling toolkit. I think I did this on the other door. I hit bevel to bevel the whole door a little bit. So if I do that, you can see that I've actually put a little bevel on the whole door. And it does give you some controls for your bevel. This little window comes up that I can set the size of my bevel, the depth of my bevel, all of that sort of thing. If I hover over the names, I get this virtual slider that I can go and pull. So if I go down to 0, there's no bevel. If I go up to a little bit, I get a little bevel. it might make the door look a little nicer to have a little bevel on it. I don't want much. And then once I use my modeling tools to create my basic door, then I want to sort of set it all into place, because everything in Maya that you do is undoable. But at some point you need to get rid of that history, and it sets it into place. So if you have a door shape, even if you don't have a window, if you have a door shape, then I want it to recognize that shape on the UVs, and it won't recognize it unless I get rid of the history. And to show you what I mean, if I go into, if I switch from modeling standard in the workspace in the upper right to the UV editing window, these are my UVs on the right for a cube, because it still thinks my object is a cube in the UVs. You know, a cube has 6 equal sides, and this UVs have 6 equal sides. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you wrap those up, UVs are when you unwrap a model to be flat, like a flat texture map. And so when you unwrap a cube, that's what it looks like. But this is not a cube anymore, it's a door. And so the shape is wrong in my UVs. The texture space is wrong. And so I need to fix that. So I'm going to go back to the door here. And I want to make sure I'm right click and I'm in object mode. So it's green and selected. And I'll do something called modify freeze transformations. And I'll do an edit, delete by type, history. Okay, so if I switch back to general and look at my attribute editor, there's a lot less stuff actually in my attribute editor where there was a lot more nodes. Now there's only 4 because the history node that I was looking at before is gone. Because I deleted the history and froze this into place. So now if I go to UV editing, it still looks like a cube because it's retaining the UVs, but I can then go and use some of the tools in here under UV Toolkit to unwrap this to be the correct shape. And what you do is in the UV Toolkit, you go to where it says create and open it up with the drop down and just hit automatic, the button that says automatic. And it's going to reset everything. And you can see that now there's actually 6 pieces here, but they're different sizes. There's a big door with the window on the top. There's a big door with the window on the bottom. There's 2 small pieces for the top and bottom, and there's 2 long pieces for the sides of the door. So now it recognizes the shape of the door. It won't do that unless you freeze transformations and delete history. And if you right click, you can choose UV shell and you can hover over each one of those pieces and it will turn red. And you can see which one is the front and back of the door. So towards me and Z is the front piece. This is the back piece. Ideally, in my texture map, I would like the window for the back piece to be in the same place. So I'm going to need to select this piece right here and rotate it around 180 degrees. And in the UV toolkit here, you have a transform, which you can open up. And it will allow you to rotate this piece 90 degrees in the rotation. And I'm going to click it twice to rotate it 180 degrees. Now I have the two windows in the same space. Now there's a lot of wasted texture space here. I could make this door look better if I were to move these around a little bit. I could move these two pieces up here. I could move these two pieces up here as well, and then I could scale these up a little bit. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I mean, if I wanted to do that, what I would do is just again, transform. I'm in transform. I can just move these around. So if I hit the W key, I can move these up here. I can rotate them 90 degrees. I can move them over here. I can place them like right there. I could take one and separate it from the other so that they're like in one line, like this. When you're working with UVs in a program like this, the texture space is always sort of 1-to-1. It's this square right here. Even though there's stuff out here, none of that is part of the texture space. It's just this one square. And so this one square is really important to, the bigger something is in that one square, the more it will use up more of the pixels in your texture map. So if I move this up and rotate it, for instance, I could place it up here like this. And same thing with this one, move it up, rotate it, and place it up here. And that means that I could actually then go in and scale these bigger, which is the main parts of my door. If I scale them up bigger, let's say I select them both and I scale them, now they're using more texture space. I'll move them up a little bit. They're still within all of this, but they're fitting better within the texture space now. I have more space to put my resolution for this model. So now that I have my UVs arranged how I want them, I can just go in and export these out to Photoshop to texture map it so it can tell me where all the parts go. So I'm going to select this whole thing and I'm going to do it's on the top under image. If you click on image, there's something called UV snapshot. And it will save out a PNG file for your UVs. And if I choose that, you can see it's set to PNG. If it's not, I would use PNG probably, or, I mean, you could use JPEG too. Don't use like Maya IFF or anything. Use JPEG or PNG. PNG if you want transparency. I don't really need transparency here. Actually, I'm sorry, I do, because there's a window. So I do want transparency. I'm going to use PNG. 2048 by 2048 means a 2K texture. That square that I was working in is 2K. And you choose the color that you want the lines to be for this UV. I usually put this to black. So if it's white, I would click on it and change it to black, put a black color. Pull this up all the way to the top somewhere so you get a black color. So I'm using black. And then tell it where to go. Let's put it into, I'm gonna browse here. I actually want this to be in my Maya project, and I'll put it in the source images folder. That's where you put texture maps when you're working in Maya. I'm gonna put it in the source images folder. And that's it. Select that. It's not gonna let me select it. Let's call this UVs. I'm making a new folder. I right-clicked to make a new UVs folder, and let's go ahead and open that. Oh, I see. Sorry, I'm not giving it a name. Yeah, source images, give it a name. I'll call this door UVs. And then hit save, or actually, let me put it in my UVs folder. Save. Okay, so now if I go out to my project file that I just made, so I made it in my inside of my class folder and inside of my Maya projects folder. Here's my project folder that I'm working in inside of Maya. If you go into it, here's all the folders that we created when we created the project. And then inside of the source images folder, I should find my UVs folder. And here I should find my image. Okay. I didn't finish exporting it. There we go. So there it is. And I'm going to right click that to open with Adobe Photoshop. This is what it looks like. It's got transparency. I actually don't need that right now. I can put it back later. I'm just going to flatten it because it's going to make it easier for you to see it. It's hard to see it with the checkerboards on there from the transparency, but this is what I exported. Here's my two doors. This is the front, this is the back, those are the sides and the top at the very top. And I can go in here and add all of my texture maps from my Megascans. So I opened up this from the Megascan door, and I can copy that. Select it. Yes.
How did you get rid of transparency?
Oh, sorry. Just flatten your image. So on the right, you have your pancakes symbol in your layers. Just go down and choose flatten image. It'll just get rid of your transparency. And you never flatten the image if you want to retain your transparency. So with this texture map over here, and you could get a door texture from online if you wanted to. It's just, I wanted to use one from the Megascan, so I'm using this one. Just use your selection, square selection, and highlight it, Control-C, copy it, go over to your door UVs, and I want to just paste it in, Control-V. And I can see that it's not oriented correctly. It's upside down. The kick plate is on the top, so I'm gonna rotate that around. Use a free transform. And, or just, edit, transform, rotate, or you could even flip vertical here to get it like that. And it depends where I want my door to open from. If I want it to open like from the right side, this is what I would want, right? Because this is my front of my door. This will be the right side of my door. That's where the doorknob is. So maybe I do want that. So I'm gonna just use my free transform to move this into place in front of my door, scale it up. All that matters is that I cover the area that is the texture map. So I'm gonna hold my shift key down and pull it straight down to stretch it a little bit, because the aspect ratio of the Megascans door is not the same as my 3D model, slightly different. I don't want to leave too much space, cover up that door entirely as much as possible. And then apply it by clicking any other tool on your left toolbar. If I want the other one, I can just, I want it to be a mirror of it. So I'm going to Control D duplicate or edit duplicate. Or sorry, no, let's do it in the layers. Duplicate layer. So click your pancake symbol, duplicate your layer. Make another door. Flip it by going to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Hold the Shift key down with your Move tool and drag it over and place it on top of the other door. Now I have my front and back door. Now for the sides, I probably just want one of these panels here. So I could just select, let's say this one right here. Select it. Control C, copy it. Control V, paste it. Edit free transform. Rotate it. Move it up. And put it and scale it to be over, I'm holding shift, that piece. I can apply it. And you can do this more carefully than me, but it really only matters that I get it pretty close. Again, I can duplicate my layer, move it up with shift, and go over the other one. And honestly, these top and bottom, probably no one's going to see it. I'm going to just duplicate it, move it up, and just scale it out, stretch it a little bit. Hold shift down and stretch it. So now I've got everything covered. I can take all of these layers and hold the shift key down in my layers on the right and get all of those different layers and merge them. Merge layers. I'm going to want a new layer underneath it to make sure no white shows through. So I'm going to select the bottom layer, create a new layer. Click on my color swatch on the left, the top color swatch, and grab a color that is a standard good color for a background on here. Maybe a sort of a dark gray. Switch to my paint drop tool, paint bucket tool, and drop it in that layer so that all I have is gray. Now none of my UV lines or white is going to show through on my texture map. And I can go and merge this down. Now, you don't want to flatten. Well, you could actually, there's no transparency here. Actually, I did make transparency. So if I want transparency, let me just show you how to do that because that's kind of important if you want to do that. If I merge this down so that all I have is my bottom layer, I can then go make this transparent so I can see where my window is. And I'm going to cut out the window. I'm just going to make sure that you, at the top under view, you have your rulers turned on. And I'm going to pull out some guides for my windows that will allow me to cut out the windows. I'm just going to where I think the transparency on those windows would be. Then I'm going to make sure that I have snap turned on under view. And I want to just drag a selection box and then hold shift down and drag another selection box. And then I'm going to do an edit cut. I'm on the layer that has the actual door texture. I've selected the area where I think the window is, and I'm going to do an edit cut. That's going to be the transparent window. Now, if I want to put a window in there that has like a dirty window, it's not like completely transparent, I'm going to want something in there. So I did a search online and found this texture. I just did, window, just window texture. I did a search for window texture. Well, this came up. So I'm gonna drag a selection box around it, fairly square. Control C, copy. Go back over to my door UVs that I'm working on. In this layer that has these holes, I'm going to use my magic selection wand and click on each one of those holes with shift held down. So I select that again. Then I'm going to do, actually, no, it'd be better. I could do this together. Okay. I could do this separately for each window, but I'm going to do it together. I think that might actually speed things up. I'm going to do an edit, paste special, paste into. And then I'm going to do an edit free transform to make it fit the two windows. You can see it made a mask. I can hold the shift down and I can do it this way a little bit. So now I'm going to get this window texture in there. And I'm going to go ahead and apply it. And then I want to make it transparent in my opacity on my layer. Maybe let's do 50%. Somewhere around 50%. That is now a transparent object. If I right-click the mask and apply layer mask, I can then merge this down onto the one that has the actual opaque windows. So now I have transparency there, opaque here. You can't really tell because I haven't deleted this bottom layer yet. So let's save this. I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file in case I want to work on this more. We'll do door UVs. Actually, we'll do door albedo and save it. It's Photoshop, so it's not going to be actually the one I'm going to use. And then I'm going to delete the bottom layer. I'm doing that because I don't want to have to bring in that UVs again in case I want to change this. So I'm going to delete that bottom layer by selecting it and deleting the layer. Say yes. And now you can see the transparencies in my window. And I only have one layer. This is what I would save out as a PNG file. This is what I want on my door to come into and put it in Unity. So I'm going to do a file, save as again, and this time I'm going to switch to PNG. This, I know I'm going fast, and this is like a crash course in Maya and making texture maps. But use the lowest, smallest file size, say okay. Now I can bring it back inside of Maya. Or it's not Unity, Maya. And I can apply it. So there is a material on this. If I make sure I'm in object mode by right-clicking my model in the 3D view and switching to object mode. And actually, we'll switch back out of UV editing. I can go ahead and go back to, let's go to general. So in general here, if I'm in the attribute editor, I can look through this object here and I can see that there's a Lambert material on it over here, but I don't want Lambert. Lambert has no specular. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click my door. I'm going to go to where it says assign favorite material, and I'm going to choose either a blend or a Phong. Let's do a blend. Okay, so now I have a blend which actually has a highlight. It has a specular. And I want to plug in the texture to the color and the, actually the color map is all I have right now. So the way you plug in a texture on a material in Maya is you find the channel color, you go to the right where there's like a checkerboard and you click on it, and it's going to allow you to choose file. And once you have that, you get a folder that you can then go click and find your texture map, which I put in my UVs folder, and it's called dooralbedo.png. And I'll open it. Now you don't see it in the 3D view because you got to turn it on with the little checkerboard symbol on the top of the window. Checkerboard is sort of the texture map symbol in Maya. And now I see I have a door with a window that's actually carved out, but it does have glass in there. And it is going to be transparent. If I look at the settings on this door's blend, if I find the blend over here and in the attribute editor, I can see that transparency automatically got plugged in because of the PNG alpha map. And I don't have a bump. So that's one issue, that Photoshop used to have these really nice tools in it for 3D, and they've been deprecating that. But you could make one here anyway if you have this version of Photoshop. I don't know if 2023 or 2024 is going to have it, but there's still an area for making bump maps. If I wanted to do that, I could go to let's see, it's under filter, 3D, generate normal map from this texture. It's not going to make a great normal map, but it'll make at least something. A normal map shows the bumpiness. And if you choose that, it's going to open up something that shows kind of how the bumpiness would be done on that surface if you were going to use it. On this sort of sphere. And I can orbit around and see what that, and I can see like the striations and stuff. So it might be worth using still. There's a blur setting and a detail scale, and you can try adjusting that to see if it really makes much of a difference. I would say yes, it does. I'd probably want to go up a little bit to give it a little bit more detail. And you have this over here, these things, but I don't think they work as well as they used to. So I'm just gonna go with that. And so I can see now that I have actually a normal map there. Now, it did something with the transparency there. Maybe that's fine. I don't really need bumpiness on my windows anyway. But I might have wanted to flatten that if I wanted it to actually show up the in the windows, the bumpiness too. But let's leave that. Let's not do that. And I'm gonna go ahead and save this file. Save, let me just check it. Let me check the layer. Okay, and then I'm just gonna do a file save as, and I'm going to put door normal and save it. So now I have a normal map as well. And inside of Maya, I'm going to plug it into this bump mapping right here. Choose file again. It switches you from the file to the bump. I'm going to go ahead and click where it says file and choose my normal map. And go back to where it says the bumpiness. And I'm going to orbit a little bit. You can orbit with your Alt key and your left mouse button, just like you can in the other programs that we're using. The move controls work pretty much the same. But if you want to increase the bump depth a little bit, you should hopefully see something happening on the door. Let me just see if I can, it picks up at all. Let me go back and look at this again, make sure it's plugged in. It's not really showing up on this one. I might want to try and switch this to a, let me see if it makes a difference if I make it a Phong. Oh yeah, big difference. So if I go back into the bump channel again, there's these little arrows up here that you can page through the different parts to get to the part that you need. It's not very intuitive, but I put the texture map way high because I wasn't seeing anything, and I'm gonna pull it back now. I really only need a teeny bit. Otherwise, it might get ugly. So like 0.1 or something like that. And even that's a little ugly, but I can adjust it inside of Unity. So I got my stuff on there. I got my texture, everything. Let's do an animation. And I know I realize I've taken up the entire time doing this today. But it's kind of important. I did want to do this, and I did want to introduce Maya to you so that you can make some custom objects for your scenes if you want to, whether, and it really doesn't matter if you're doing it for Unity or Unreal. I could use this door in Unreal just as easily as I could use it in Unity. But being able to make some custom objects and put animation on them is kind of an important skill to know about. And we'll get to the scripting. But let's go ahead and finish this out. So I don't want just the door. I want to put the open animation on it too. So I'm going to do that. Inside of here, I need something to animate the door from the hinge. So the hinge is going to be on this side over here. So what I'm going to do is inside of most programs, most 3D programs, there's a way to make just an empty or what's called a locator inside of Maya. So if I go to create, down here, about a little more than halfway down is locator. And locator is just an empty, what's called an empty in some other programs. It's just a center. There's nothing there except a pivot point. And that's what you use for animation a lot. If I create that, I can check my channels. It's in the center of the world. I made my door in the center of the world. So I just use the W key and drag it over so that it's sort of sitting at the edge. And you might want to orbit around and just pull it forward so it's actually going to rotate from the front edge if it's going to rotate out towards you. That's actually where a door hinge would be. It'd be in the front edge. Okay, so in this case, I place this empty, which I will double click over in my outliner and call door hinge. I placed it where the door is going to animate from. And then I want to parent it. Now in Unity, you drag things onto the other objects to parent them. In here, what you do is you select the child first in your outliner, and then shift select the parent, which in this case is my door hinge. And then go to the top under edit and choose parent. It's also P on your keyboard. And it will parent the door, which has its center in the middle, to the door hinge, which is out on the corner of the door. And if I choose the parent and I hit E and switch to rotate, I can open the door, right? I can animate it to open. Okay. And I might want to create a doorknob too. I did that in the other door that I have. I haven't done that here. If I was doing a doorknob, I mean, it's really, really easy. I could just create a polygon cube again. I don't really need the center to, I'm going to move it out so I can see it. And in this case, I can switch back to my workspace to modeling standard, right click to choose faces again. Click on this back face right here, and I'll extrude and hit the W key to pull it out, and the R key to scale it down, kind of like that. And then extrude again to pull it out. to actually have the doorknob part. Okay, and maybe extrude again, pull it out and scale it, hit R to scale it up, so it's gonna go into the door. All right, so I just made the doorknob part here, and I could select the front and extrude, move it out a little bit and scale it down a little bit. And what this is gonna do is it's going to shape, create the doorknob shape of just a round type of doorknob. And if I want to see what that's going to look like, I can hit 1, 2, or 3 on my keyboard to get a smoothing effect on that, to see what would look like if I smooth it. And I can actually use that to further model the door. Like we could switch to, for instance, vertexes instead of faces. I could select these vertices here and hit scale. And see if I can make it a little bit more doorknobby shape. Right. The more I add edges, the more hard the edge it's going to be. This is fine. It's just going to be a minor thing down there, so I don't really need this to look really that detailed. Maybe I'll pull it back a little bit. And so if I have it in this view, I'm looking at the smooth subdivided shape by hitting the 2 key. 1 is the original one, 2 is subdivision. I can go to modify, convert polygons to subdiv, or actually, no, that's not the one I want. It's smooth mesh preview to polygons. That's what I want. It's going to take this preview that I have using the 1, 2, and 3 keys, and it's going to basically freeze it into place. I need to get back into object mode to do it, but let's try it again. Modify, convert, smooth mesh preview to polygons, and now I have a smooth doorknob that I can give a material and just place in there. So let's just do that. Let's place it. Just scale it a little bit. R key, move it a little bit. Make it smaller. Okay, so I got an actual physical doorknob there now. And I'll go ahead and parent that. I'll name it, double click it, doorknob. And I'll make it child to the door itself by selecting the child, which is the doorknob. Shift select the door itself and go to edit parent. So now it's got the doorknob child. If I select the hinge and rotate it, the doorknob goes with it. I should probably put in one on the other side too, but I'm not going to bother doing that. I could put a material on it, but I'll put a material on it inside of Unity, and it's just going to be a shiny doorknob. That's it. So let's go ahead and do the animation real quick. To animate this, I want the timeline. I'm going to switch to my animation workspace. That gives me not only the timeline across the bottom, but it also gives me a graph editor here that will show me my animation curves. So I'm going to select the door hinge. I'm going to rotate it in Y So I want to look at the rotation Y, it's at 0. Let's go ahead and select that channel in the channel box, right click it, and key selected. I'm doing it at 0 on the timeline. You can see my timeline here. The red tick is at 0. I've got 0 here. And I want to decide how long this should be. I want it to be open in 1 second, 3 seconds open, 1 second close. That's my animation. So if I'm using 30 frames per second, which I'm going to set on my timeline down here, switch from 24 to 30 frames. FPS means 30 frames per second. I've just switched to 30 frames per second. And I want to do 5 seconds. So 3 times 5, that's 15. It's 150 frames. So I'm going to set my end, which is right here, to 150. Both of these end ones. So now I have 150 frames on my timeline. Okay. I set a key at rotation Y at 0. I'm going to go to frame 30. And at frame 30, I'm going to open it. I have 3,200 frames there. So, I'm just going to hit F there so I can see it better. F is to frame, and we'll do that as I go along and set my keys. So at frame 30, I'm going to rotate it, make sure I'm generating keys in the right channel, which is the Y channel, and maybe 130 degrees, negative 130. Right click that channel again and key selected. Now I'll go down to my graph editor and hit F again, and I can see what that looks like. So it opens it in 30. Okay, that didn't look right. Let's go ahead and use our go to key, which is this little arrow with a line after it, an orange line after it. And I must have typed in something wrong there. So I'm going to reset that key. I'm going to rotate it out. Maybe I typed in negative 130 instead of negative 130. I want to make sure it's open and key selected. So I reset that key. It's going to reset the graph editor, and hopefully that should look good. Now I'm going to go 3 seconds in, so that's 120. When you're keyframing, you got to think about 30 times 3 for 3 seconds, so that's 90 more frames. And I'm going to key it open again. Key selected. And then I'm going to go to frame 150, and I'm going to put it back to 0. And key, right click the channel and key selected. So if I look at if I frame it, this is my animation. Each of these on the graph editor curves have handles. They should be flat. And they go from a flat 0 to open, stays open, and then closes with an ease in and ease out at each one of those places. So that should be a natural looking animation. I'm gonna go ahead and export this to Unity by going to File. Actually, make sure you have it selected. And I would go ahead and do a select under the select menu, choose hierarchy after you select the door hinge so that you get all the pieces. And we're going to export that out as an FBX to Unity. So I've made my animation in here. I've checked it in my graph editor. I've checked it by scrubbing the timeline to see it move. I know it's all there. The materials and texture maps are there too. That should all go out on my FBX export. And so you select the pieces here of your model so that you have all of it, and then you can do a file, export selected, export selection. Now there is something that you should know under Window General Editors. There is a settings preferences. There's a plugin manager that if you're going to do FBX, you have to make sure that FBX is installed and active. So in your plugin. So if I type in FBX in my plugin manager, I can see that my game FBX exporter and my FBX Maya plugins are both all checked. And once you do that once in Maya, you won't have to do it again. It'll remember it. But the first time you try to export something, maybe it might not be turned on and you might not find the FBX exporter. So you might have to come to the plugin manager here to turn it on. Once it's on, when you go to File, Export Selection, and open up your options, you will have the choice of using FBX. It might be on Best Guess or something like that, or Maya. You don't want to use that. Use FBX Export. And then go to Edit Preset and make sure that you're exporting out Embed Media is turned on. It's under this little drop down here. Make sure it's turned on. That way the texture maps and everything will export with it. You also want to make sure animation is turned on. I don't think we need to bake anything, so I'm not turning on some of the other bake animation stuff, and there's not really any other stuff that we need, like cameras, lights, or even anything to do with rigging or anything. So all I want is my smoothing groups turned on, smooth mesh, reference, assets, content. That's all defaults. I didn't change that. But I do want to make sure animation's turned on because I have some animation, and I want to make sure embed media is turned on. When you look at those, just close the window. It'll save them automatically, and then choose export selection. You can double check again that those things are turned on the right here. You can see all of them over there. Sometimes they don't take, and you just got to double check it. And then I would send this to somewhere in your Maya project here. I would put it in assets, and we'll call this door export Maya. Just so I know where it's coming from. And I'll export it. So inside of Unity, I'm going to import that in. And I would just go and, since I'm already in my project here, I'm gonna go to my game assets and look inside of that assets folder that I just exported to, and there's my FBX, it's 10 megabytes. It's not a big file. If I go into my Unity now, I can be inside my models folder, and I'm going to go ahead and just drag that FBX file into my models folder in Unity. The door shows up there. I'll select it. I'll look at it in the model. First thing I would bring it in, because sometimes the scaling is totally wrong going from Maya. So if I drag it into my scene here, it's tiny. It's like an ant's door right now. So I want to go back to my import settings where it says scale factor here, and let's put 10 in there and apply it. And I'm starting to see it now. Let's just grab it and pull it up a little bit. All right, so now I can actually see it, but it's still kind of tiny. So let's go and let's put 30 and apply it. And it's starting to get the right size now. It's there. It looks like it's the right size. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I can fine tune the scaling inside by just using scale, but I just wanted to get it close so I could see it. And I'm going to have to line it up also with the with everything to make sure that that's going to be oriented correctly for my door opening. But I'm going to go and to the rigging section, and I'm going to switch this from generic to legacy and hit apply. And the reason I'm doing this is because in the animation, I'm actually going to want to cut up the animation in here to separate pieces to work with my scripts correctly. So I want to open animation. I'm going to create some different animations from the one animation. And that's actually needs to have this set to legacy. I'm also going to go to materials and switch, like I've been doing, to using external materials and use the local materials folder and apply it. Now, as soon as I did that, you can see the texture map showed up. Before I did that, the texture map wasn't there. Now it's in a folder here for the door, and inside it, I can see that both the albedo and the normal map is there. And the normal map needs to be switched to a normal and apply it. And I would also adjust the ANISA level. And you see they look, well, as soon as I do that and apply them, it actually looks normal, these texture maps. It actually brought up a thing that says fixing it, which I did manually, so I don't really need it to be fixed. But those are all there now. And I can see that if I select the door here, there should be, there's some pieces to this door. Let me open it up. The actual door, so there's a empty, which has the animation on it. There is the door mesh, which has the texture map on it, called door albedo. And then there's the doorknob, which has no texture map, so I'm gonna have to make a texture map for the doorknob. It's just got a basic Lambert material on it. But it's all there, and it seems to be placed correctly. So I'm mostly concerned about the not the positioning. I will need to position it, but the rotation is at 0 for all of the for the door itself. I can see that, so that's kind of important. The animation is on the hinge, which it changed the name of my hinge to Door Export Maya. I'm going to change it back again to hinge. Okay, so I have a hinge. There should be an animation on. I can go check that under animation here. If I go to the bottom, I can see that there's an animation. It's 150 frames. It's called Take One. If I hit play, it opens and stays open, and then it closes. And if I look at my object that has that, it's got an animation thing here, and if I look, it's got it plugged in, it's got an animation component, it's plugged in, and it's set to play automatically. That's part of the legacy system that I'm using here. It's a simple animation. I don't need the complicated newer animation systems. I'm going to use this older one because it is pretty simple. We will use the newer one too, but let me just hit play. And what I should see on my door, if I rotate around fast enough, is I should see it open and close. So the animation is working. Now, I don't want that animation to loop. So I'm going to go back to my animation settings. I'm going to look at a few things here. So inside, I have this one animation called Take One, and the wrap mode is under default. I only want this to ever play once. I do not want it to loop. Default is actually, I think, play once, but I'm going to specify just to make sure. And the other thing is, I actually, with my code, have something for opening the door, and then I actually have a timer to close the door. So the closing part is actually done in the script. So it's not going to stay open 3 seconds. It's going to stay open however long I set that to. And I may want to do other things where it just stays open when I'm inside of the trigger. In that case, I can't have an animation that's just one animation. I have to cut it up into pieces. And there's a way of doing it in here where you have your clips. This is my main clip that I brought in. I can hit plus here to create new clips that will be part of that. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit the plus symbol here. And let's say I want, let's say I want an animation to go just from, it's going to be called idle for my door. And it's only going to go from 0 to 1. So I plug it in 0 to 1. So now that's just a closed door animation, but I might want that later on, depending what I'm doing with my door. And I'm going to set that again to once, or maybe I want it on loop, but I'm just going to set it to once for now. So now I have an idle animation in addition to, this is basically an array of animations. And as I hit this plus button, it's adding to that array. We've talked about arrays before. We used them in Unreal. It's basically a variable with a bunch of slots that starts at 0 and goes up from there. And so array 0 is my original animation. Idle is my in array 1 slot. and I'll hit plus again, and let's make an open one, which I know, I'm gonna call it door underscore open. Enter. And I do need to remember these names or be aware of them, because they are used in the script. And this one is going to be 30 seconds long. So from 0 to 30. Technically, I think it's more like 1 to 30 is the open animation. And again, I only want that to play once. And if I hit play here, I can see that open animation repeating. So it looks correct. I'm going to hit plus again, and I'm going to make a closed animation. I'll call it door underscore close. And I'll make it go from, I believe it was 150 to, no, sorry, 120 to 150. It's a 30-second close. So 120 to 150. I'm going to use once again, and I'll hit play, and I should see that door continuously close. So I've set up all of these new animations from that first one. I'm not going to play any of these automatically, so it doesn't matter that where they're plugged in here. I just need to know the names, and I'll apply it all. Now, if I go back to my actual door where the animation is on the door hinge, I should see a little drop down arrow next to animations. And if I open that up, I'll see all my animations there, my array of animations. And I'm going to use this door open and door close in my script that we'll be looking at. Okay, so the last thing to do here with this door is to plug it in so it's in the right place. I'll turn play automatically off on this so that it doesn't automatically play when you play the game. I'm going to use the script for that, but I do need to fit it in my door space there a little better. So let's just go ahead and I'll zoom in a little bit, and we'll just try to fit this in better. So here's my door hinge. I may want to create an empty for this for scaling and placement, so I don't mess with the hinge itself. Because the hinge actually has the numbers, the hinge has the animation, and the numbers need to be what they should be for the animation. They need to start at 0, go to 130 to open the door, and go back. So if I actually were to rotate this door, I would change all of those rotation numbers, and that could affect my animation. I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an empty for this door to place it. And you do that by going to the plus symbol up in your hierarchy, create empty, and then try to place this probably, so I'll call this, let's call it position door. So I'm going to position my door with this node, and I want it to be on top of my hinge. So I'm going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to parent it under the hinge by dragging it on top of the hinge. But that's not the way I want it. So you guys should know this trick. If you want an object to be right on top of another object, you parent it under it, and then you reset its transforms, and it will pop to right on top of that object. But if you want that to actually be the parent, then you have to unparent it and reparent it again. I know it sounds confusing, but this is a thing I use all the time to move something in place. So I need this empty to be right on top of the door hinge. So I parent it under the door hinge and I reset its transforms. So I go over here, click on the little arrows and hit reset. Now it's right on top of the door hinge. But I don't want it to be child to the door hinge. I want the door hinge to be child to it. So I pull it out to this empty area to unparent it. And then I take the door hinge and I parent it, drag it on top of the position door. Now the door hinge is child to position door. Right? It sounds confusing, but it's totally makes sense when you do it. So now I can take position door and I can scale it and move it, and door hinge will stay 0. Like door hinge rotations will stay 0 because I'm moving the parent. So I'm going to move the parent back. I need to fit it into the door. I need to rotate it. Maybe move it down. And because I put it on the side like this, it should be pretty easy for me to sort of scale this and make it fit the outpost, even though the outpost is at a weird angle. So I can scale this up a little bit, scale it out a little bit. Now I'm doing all this movement to fit the door in place, right? So I want it to fit my door hole and sit flat kind of in my door cavity here. Like that. So it's kind of in the door. And then I want to check after I do this to make sure that my numbers for my animation are still okay. Like they're not going to be weird. Okay, so I think that's pretty good for my door. Seems to be like it fits. I do want to select the door itself, the mesh, and take a look at my texture map and take a look at my normal setting. It's a little low, so I'm going to set it. I'm going to try to put it back up a little bit, maybe to 1. I'm going to pull metallic up on it a little bit, adjust the smoothing a little bit, and now it looks way better. And I'll walk up to that door and take a look and make sure it's in the right place. So it should be positioned, the door hinge should actually have its 0 in all its channels because it's a child, and that should not mess up my animation. Okay, so now walk up to the door and see what that looks like, see if it's actually fitting. And I want to make sure I can't walk through it like I just did, right? So walk through it. Okay. Is it really not positioned correctly? All right, so I made a mistake. It's too far back and it's not scaled right, but it's getting closer. I'll have to actually zoom inside, I think, to get it. But one thing that I want to do is get the door mesh itself and go ahead and put a collider on it. I'm not going to create it with the import settings this time. I actually want it to be a basic box collider because a door doesn't need to be a mesh collider, which uses more memory. So I'm going to add component physics to the door mesh itself, and I want a box collider, and it'll just fit perfectly around the door. And now I won't be able to walk through the door. And then let me just zoom inside here and take a look. Okay, it's obvious it's not placed correctly now. Let me go ahead and grab the door position again. And we want to move it a little bit. There we go. Into the hole. Better. Scale it a little bit. And now hit play. Orbit around and okay, it's better. It's not quite where I want it, but now I can't walk through it. Okay, so I have a door. Who'd have thought that would take like 3 hours in class to make a door and put it in here? But that's okay. I mean, this is important stuff for you guys to actually know. And you need a door. So if we're going to do the door scripts, I need you to get a door. Whether you make one or you bring one in from Unreal or something, you need a door with a setup similar to the one that I have right here. And you can use the video that I'm recording here to make sure that you have the right kind of door placed in some kind of structure, or even if you don't, I would say by Wednesday, have your door and structure there so we can really do and have everything for your pickups there so that we can really put together this this dynamics that we need to do to get this working the same way as in Unreal. There's 9 scripts that you have now. You can look through those. They're commented like crazy. I would never comment a script as much as I commented these in a real world situation. Every line pretty much almost has a comment on it. So you can go into there and look at the comments to see what those scripts are doing. So you can kind of familiarize yourself with them before we actually do them on Wednesday. When we get on Wednesday, we're going to put all those 9 scripts on, and it's going to be challenging for some people to jump from what we've been doing to like full scripting like that. So we'll probably not get it done in one day, but we'll start and we'll try to get as far as we can on Wednesday. So you need to have some of these things in there, a door with some animation on it, so we can start triggering all this stuff next time. So go use your 3D animation package of choice. If you don't have one, use Maya, because that's what I just showed you. Make something in Maya with animation on it and import it as an FBX and set it up in the import settings the way I did here, so that you have all this on Wednesday morning when we get started. And we'll make all this work on Wednesday, okay? Keep working on your environment, keep building that up, building your aesthetics up, and then we'll get into the dynamics. I want to take like on this project another 2 weeks. And then we're going to have another due date where the project's going to be due. And then we're going to be in the final stretch to where you're going to be choosing this project or your Unreal Engine project to finish out for your final. You have to do this project, right? You can't like say, oh, well, I want to do my Unreal project, so I'm not going to do anything on this. You're going to still be graded on this project. So you have to put this project together with all the stuff that we do in class and something extra that you find on your own, just like we did with the Unreal project. And I think we can do that in a couple of weeks. Maybe 3 weeks, but hopefully 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And then we'll be going towards the final. And you'll have some time to work on one of those projects. So, you know, Leo has some office hours or some lab hours during the week that he's been doing on Fridays. I have office hours that you can email me to set up a time to meet. I am meeting also with advising students now, so everybody knows we're in advising right now. So I am pretty busy in my office hours with advising, but I can definitely meet with you, or we can do something over Zoom. But that's it. Get ready for doing the scripts on Wednesday and get a working door. Have a good one. Ask me questions if you have any on your way out.